And as of right now, in 2023, there are more data scientist positions open than there are data scientists, correct?
I'm going to rephrase that a little bit.
Okay.
There are not as many data scientist jobs as you would think out there.
Okay.
But there are a ton of jobs at a very high level, high as in, a need for it, pays well, that needs data science skills.
Okay.
So people still aren't sure what to do with the data scientist, but they want data science.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. That's something that I've seen in the industry that I work in, is that we've got a large focus on AI, machine learning, and have had that same focus. But then there's the idea that, like, I have all this data that I could be using, and I want somebody to mess with it, and that's a data analytics person, right? And it's like, no, the data analytics person reviews the data. The data scientist does so much more than that. And you think you want somebody that's not a full-blown data scientist, but you really do need somebody that can do the data science things.
Yeah, and I think since we're talking about the why, I think we need to just not define it with a definition. You can go Google definition. I'll actually tell you what it really, if you want the definition. But what I think is confusing is, what are the different aspects of data and then the jobs that are out there for data? So, first of all, if you're entry level, in almost every case, the most common job that you can get is probably a data analyst. And that is going to be somebody that manipulates data a little bit, maybe, and creates reports, charts, things like that, but basically helps you at the basic level.
Yeah, and so a lot of that's data visualization and communicating certain contractual SLAs through data.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily out there like finding new ways to generate data, but they're definitely working with what they have to help build a better picture of what actually is going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you were to say, then if you stay that's usually a business related job.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you'll hear in colleges of business, they'll have analytics, information systems and analytics, business systems analytics. That usually is a role where you get the basics of the business topics. You get accounting, you get your marketing, you get your management, finance, and then you get analytics courses, a little bit of programming, but you're not a full-blown computer scientist, and mathematician. You understand data, you can pull data. A lot of times they're also probably, good at database. And so those might be some of the precursors, but normally not a data scientist at that point. The other part that I kind of just hinted at is database itself. So you have data analyst that does kind of that rudimentary type stuff. But then there's the database administrator, or the person that works in the database field, which basically means there is a huge need to retrieve data and also to create structure around where our data lives. And that's a field.
Yeah. And so to use an example for that, so it doesn't matter what kind of value or how your data, like how much data you have, if it's not organized well, it's not going to work for you. And what I mean by that is like searching, like the industry I work in, the biggest problem they have is like their data is not consistent. Meaning if you have this data point, it doesn't always show up in column X, all the way down. They'll have some in column X, they'll have some in column Y, but also in column Y is a little bit of this data, and you can't really parse it out without setting up the structure. So is that what a database manager would do?
Yeah, and there's a little bit of data architect might be another term if you get into that, and that's usually the ability to design the entire structure. But really, we're just talking about database admins.
Okay, so the data cathedral people, those are the architects.
Yes, they're the architects that make the data warehouse, the data lakes, the data blah, 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 and you name it. So there's that end. Now, when you start blurring into more of the data science world, yes, now you're starting to get into those roles. And when we say data scientist, and then we're gonna talk about another category as well. So we've talked about kind of the rudimentary entry level data analyst, the people that retrieve the data, the database admin, the people that play with the data, the ones that will use algorithms and the math and the statistics behind things to be able to predict or to be able to tell other stories with data, that's the role of the data scientist.
Okay.
And when we say that, that is going to include a little bit of programming, a little bit of math and statistics, and most important, which is hard to get in education, but hopefully you get it in your job, is business acumen, or understanding the business that you're actually working the data with.
Yeah, I can appreciate that a lot, because that's the approach that I took. Like, I was taking data, initially I was taking data to say, what does it mean to do a good job? And how do I create lead metrics around it? And lead metrics are essentially, indicators of performance. And think of it like a fence. Like, it's a fence around your job. And as long as your lead metrics are good, then you're doing your job well, and you get freedom within those lead metrics. So how you specifically do your job, we don't micromanage, as long as you're hitting your big numbers. And then that transitioned for me personally into, okay, so how do I predict the future with the data that we have? How do I tell better stories with the data we have? And that's one of the things that we've always leaned on. And I feel like we're in a really good position because our knowledge base is clean, our databases are clean, and everything that we need from them, we throw it into Power BI, because that's the most most useful tool for us, and it has a lot of power to it.
And then the other part goes kind of like to the post part of creating a model. So again, a data scientist, if you were to say, what do you create? They would probably say they create models, predictive models in most cases. When you take that model and put it into the everyday use within a business, now you're probably a data engineer, is what that's called. So that would be the other role that you hear a lot about. And so think about this. You create an algorithm, you're an insurance company, and you want people to go on a website and type in a couple of things about themselves, and they automatically get a rate. Well, that is an algorithm behind the scenes that was probably created by a data scientist or somebody like that. And they want, or let's say they did do that at least. Well, now that data scientist does not know how to get that, where they takes text boxes from a website, brings it into a model, and then gives you an answer of, $150 a month. Need somebody else usually to do that understands the infrastructure and how to get something into production. So that would be that last job, the data engineer.
Okay. So that's a good field.